Hi, everybody. I am Ari Engel, the Director of Creative Community for Peace. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know we have people from all around the world tuning in. We had a lot of great messages from people who were super excited about this panel. For those of you who don't know, Creative Community for Peace is a nonprofit entertainment industry organization comprised of prominent members of the entertainment community who have come together to promote the arts as a bridge to peace. Additionally, we are also the leading organization working to counter anti-Semitism within the entertainment industry and also to galvanize support against the cultural boycott of Israel. Just for an example, through the years, we've supported artists from Alicia Keys and Jennifer Lopez to Bon Jovi when they booked to perform in Israel and have faced boycott pressure. And through our digital task force, we're responsible for the removal of hundreds of pieces of anti-Semitic content from sites such as TikTok, Spotify, and YouTube. And we also believe in the arts and entertainment and sports and culture to bring people together and have a number of events and initiatives that we've done over the years to bring Israelis, Palestinians, Arabs, Jews, Muslims, Christians, and everybody else out in the Middle East and people in America together. To learn more about our work and to support our work, as we are a nonprofit, please visit ccfpeace.com. That is ccfpeace.com. As I mentioned, we have an amazing panel event today with the cast and creators of the hit HBO Plus, I should say, TV series Valley of Tears. For all of you joining us on Zoom, you can leave questions in the Q&A section, and we will get to as many of them as possible in the later half of the discussion. Just know that we will try to get to as many as possible. To briefly introduce our guest, our first guest today is one of the co-creators, Ron Leshem, who is an Academy Award nominated Israeli writer-producer. He's the creator and executive producer of the hit television series Euphoria, and currently serves as executive producer on the HBO version as well, which is the English language adaptation. Most recently, Ron's film Incitement won the Ophir Award for Best Film and was chosen as Israel's submission for Best International Film for the 2020 Academy Awards. Hey, Ron.
Hi, thanks for having us. Great to see you.
Thank you. Our next guest is the show's other co-creator, Amit Cohen, who is also the creator, writer, and executive producer of the Israeli series False Flag, which is now being remade by Apple. Together, Ron and Amit have also written Fertile Crescent, which is a European co-production by Fremantle for Hulu, currently in production, and Israeli series Gordon Cell, which was later adapted into NBC's Allegiance. How you doing? Next, we have Shahar, who plays the incredible Avinoam. Shahar is an actor and musician who has starred in a number of television shows and theater productions in Israel, with this series being one of his biggest breakout roles, who was absolutely incredible in this. I don't think anybody will ever forget how he portrayed this role. How you doing, Shahar?
Thank you so much for all the compliments. Thank you so much. I'm doing great.
You all deserved. And our moderator for today is CCFP Advisory Board member Scott Kluge. Scott has over 2 decades of experience in film, Broadway, and television production. In 2009, Scott established and became president of Tremendous Entertainment, an independent production company that develops and produces high-quality content for A-list talent. Scott has worked with some of the biggest stars on stage and screen. On Broadway, he produced the revival of Arthur Miller's All My Sons, starring Katie Holmes, Tony Award winner John Lithgow, and Oscar Award winner Diane West. Subsequently, Scott has produced motion picture Hesher, starring Golden Globe and Academy Award winner Natalie Portman, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Rainn Wilson. He's also developed the Golden Globe-winning film Kids Are All Right, starring Annette Bening and Julianne Moore, and then went on to produce the feature film Blind, starring Alec Baldwin, Demi Moore, and Dylan McDermott. So we got some super celebs and super movers and shakers with us today. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of miscommunication with Lior Ashkenazi's timing. Hopefully, he's going to pop up somewhere soon. If he does, that'll be an amazing addition. He played Menny in the show. And with that, I turn it over to you, Scott.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks for that great introduction. And I hope you guys have your apple cider and green M&Ms and strawberries cut in thirds, everything that was on the writer. I hope that's in place for you. Thanks to the cast and creators of the hit show, Valley of Tears, for joining us today. Let's jump right in. As we're witnessing, the doors have been opening more and more for Israeli content in the global market. And that's thanks to several recent hit shows, including Ron's show, Euphoria. Right, Ron? You had a big hit in Israel, and then it was adapted here in America for HBO. So that's really terrific. So congrats to you guys on this masterful project. Not only what you accomplished creatively, but the show's success is widening the door of that exposure for other Israeli content on the global market. All right, so Amit and Ron, this isn't your first collaboration, right? So how did you guys connect and meet?
So, well, we were friends for 25 years. We started as intelligence officers working on a peace process.
Wow.
Then we were journalists together. I was a news editor and then a TV executive. Amit was covering both peace and terror. Amit was covering the Middle Eastern affairs, and we worked together, and we ended up writing shows, creating shows together, which is as you mentioned, it's an amazing time to do that. We are most of the Israeli creators these days are kind of the glue of a community of creators worldwide. We are creating shows in Israel. We are adapting it worldwide, and Israel had become the #1 exporter for formats, meaning you create a show in Israel and you film it all over in Korean, in Japanese, and all over the place. Amit is now filming the False Flag that you mentioned with Uma Thurman in London, but then we also do shows in languages we don't talk, like we don't speak, Korean, etc. But our passion always stayed in touching these subjects that were these kind of shows like we're going to talk today about.
Now, are all these shows for you guys initially Israeli, or have you guys created some shows that started here in the States?
No, so our last show, the one that we did in parallel to Valley of Tears, was an American-European co-production. It's called Valley of Tears. It has nothing to do with Israel. It's
No Man's Land.
It's called No Man's Land, and it tells it like it happens. It's a thriller and a family drama that happens on the backdrop of the Syrian civil war, and it was a truly international production for the first time. I think the show speaks 7 languages. It had cast and a crew from 10 different countries, Israelis, European, American. So it was a completely different experience. And
yeah,
like Ron mentioned, we're developing
incredible.
European shows as well.
Wow. And how many languages do you guys speak?
I speak 3 languages.
3 languages?
Yeah.
Yiddish? Is that
No,
one
no,
of them?
Arabic.
No, Arabic?
Yeah.
Amit, so this has been a long road, right? As these projects always are. I understand it took you 10 years to finance this project.
Yeah. Valley of Tears was the longest project. And Ron said, he was always the optimistic one. He always said, because we started working on it 10 years ago, and the very advanced versions of the draft were ready in 2011, I think. And then the production got stuck for various reasons. And Ron always said,
So take us through this. So start us from the genesis of the project, and then your implacable pursuit of a decade's worth of work to finally come 10 years later, and then how you got it financed. So just show us a little bit of that journey if you can.
So usually when you create in 2020 or 2010 a show about 1973, the first thing you're asking yourself, besides the fact that you have to say that when you go on such a journey, that it might take you 5 or 10, even 10 years. So you have to choose something that is not just, well, it's an awesome idea. I believe someone will buy it, or the audience would love it. You have to choose a world that you are super enthusiastic about, a place you want to live in, an era you want to live in, people you want to be under their skin, see the world through their eyes, and you want to make sure if it's a periodic piece that you have something to say, something new, something relevant. Basically, you can't create a show about 1973 that could have been made in 1980, right? You want to know that you are saying something that is significantly important for today. And we knew what was that like we had this urge just to explore a few themes that we felt that are crucial for Israel today, and we at the same time we wanted to live in this world, in this timing, etc. So we started writing, and a lot of the complexities that we had had to do, of course, with the technical issues. Meaning, you want to have tanks that were fighting. The Israeli audience, they're the most neurotic audience in the world, and they get insulted very easily, and there are a lot of things. But more than anything, they're obsessed with looking for your mistakes, and you can't use tanks from like that weren't there. You need to be accurate, but all these tanks were destroyed like 20 years ago. And in the US, apparently there are people who are selling tanks on Craigslist, which is really easy to buy. People have tanks in the backyards, both
For
the
50K you can get a tank.
Yeah, it's like it's cheap.
I need one for Fifth Avenue here in New York. The traffic is terrible. I'm gonna go on Craigslist when we wrap.
It's really easy to get one, but it was unfortunately, the Israeli law forbids us from importing tanks into Israel, even for shooting purposes. We had no idea what we're going. And it's really, I mean, imagine that our budget for a show is tinier than the budget that Hollywood has for the refreshments on set.
But this was the most expensive show in Israeli history, is that right?
Yeah. So we had to work. We had to find the partners that will believe in the story and will believe that it's going to get to 160 territories worldwide, etc. But we also had to. But that, you know what? All the budget and technical issues were the easiest part. Were not the real reason that it took 10 years. The sensitivity it has with touching these issues, the more emotional side of how they, because Americans are used to writing films and books about novels about the Vietnam Wars. We do not write about the Yom Kippur War. This happened at the same time. It's our biggest trauma ever. It's our biggest disaster. It changed us. It changed the Middle East. But we only had one film made about it. None when it comes to TV series, and only I think one novel, 1.5 novels dealing with the war. And that's because we have lots of forgotten war. Now we knew we were getting into the most explosive territory while writing this. So it took 10 years even in that aspect.
And just going back for a second, because it's so sensitive, one of the most sensitive wars, if not what was the catalyst for you to say, okay, this is what we're going to dedicate our lives to? That's what we do when we produce content. We dedicate our lives. So why were you so drawn to this topic?
We think the war changed Israel in many ways. It was a fracture line that changed Israeli society. Until then, I think there was an illusion or a notion that Israel is unified, that Israel, after the 6-day war, Israel, it was the end of history, that everything is going to be great from now. And there was some sort of hubris, and it changed it. But the war changed it. On a personal level, we were affected by it. I mean, we all knew someone who was in this war, specifically. My parents, by the way, they got married during the war. My father, he was an intelligence officer, very similar to the character that Shahar portrays. And at the same war, he was stationed. He was an officer. He was stationed in the Sinai Desert, not in the Golan Heights. And in the same day of the war, he had a visitor, an officer coming from Tel Aviv and my father gave him the tour. And the other one, he was intelligence officer as well. So my father gave him the tour, and then when they went to the bunker, and my father showed him all the indications that the war is imminent. And he says, war is coming. The other guy said, I'm seeing what you're telling me. From here, it might look like this, but still, we don't think that it will end up with a war. And as they were speaking, Egyptian jet fighters bombed their bunker, and this is how the war started. And when he saw it, he had tears in his eyes because it felt so. It brought everything, and this was the reaction in Israel. We wanted to deal with something that we wanted to do something that will feel visceral and emotional for Israeli audience that will stay with them. But I don't think we ever imagined how impactful it's going to be.
And by the way, Scott, I wanted to, I think, that area.
And wait, just Shahar, let Shahar know I have a bunch of questions for him. They're coming soon. We want to dive into
I know. I'm intrigued.
But Ron, sorry, go ahead.
I think, the air raid siren at Saturday, 2 p.m. was a kind of, it was the funeral kind of a siren for the first Israel, for the Israel that used to, with all its sins, and Israel ceased to exist that moment, and a new Israel was born. And at the end of the war, this war, that there was a young officer who was telling, we found the speech of a young officer telling his soldiers, listen, there was one thing I'm sure of, which is that after everything we've seen here, after all we've done here, after all the sins and arrogancy and blindness and all our sins, I can promise you that we're going to be a better country, a better people, etc. And our idea was to ask ourselves, not only, I mean, did we fulfill this? Are we a better country? But to choose all the things that were dominant in that war, which means things that are traumatizing the Israeli society even today. The reason we are all kind of a PTSD kind of a society, and all the things that we're suffering from, we wanted to tell this through that war. So I have to admit, yeah, we all grew up on the American films, The Thin Red Line and Apocalypse and the Bridge of Rye and Saving Private Ryan. And we all knew that we are going to make sure that we choose characters and dilemmas and conflict that you haven't seen in these wars, because we wanted to make sure that we're not just trying to do something that the US cinema had done better than us. But it was, for us, it was a national reckoning for Israel. We never thought of this international audience.
I have one last question about this path, and then we're going to get to the creative. Ron, your euphorian relationship with HBO, did that contribute to getting distribution for this show? Can you walk us through a little bit? Did you guys have distribution early on? Was it not until you locked picture and then you had to go out? What was that?
We were confident. I mean, we were confident enough to believe that if we have a tape of a show, we will be able to do the distribution smarter and more efficient than trying to sell the scripts. 3 years ago, we got an offer from a US studio that wanted to film this in English. And we were arrogant enough to say, no, it won't work. We need to film this the Israeli audience will never forgive us if this is filmed with American actors. But then our production and distribution company, West End Films, they send it to HBO MAX in the US, and they didn't even start. They say, well, we won't try to do a bid war or something. Let's go with this home. People we love and appreciate, and see what they come up with. And they immediately said, yeah, we're in. So it was really quick.
And it was amazing, seeing the reaction from Scandinavia and Poland and Asia, people relating to the story. It was really surprising and
well, it's a story of humanity, which I think relates around the world for sure. And all right, so you guys touched on some interesting stuff. I want to talk about some of the acting and what was cooking behind the scenes. But what you were talking about is it's challenging to create significantly different characters when you have an ensemble. But if we look at your characters, and I had a nice chat with Joy this week. I know she wanted to be with us. I don't think she's going to jump in. Joy played Daphna. And I don't know if we're getting Menny here with Lior, but if we examine those three characters on their own, they had such unique voices from each other. It was just a great achievement by the writers, but even more impressive by the cast. So Shahar, talk about the path you took to unpack the material on the page that brought Avinoam to life with such authenticity. How did you do that?
I have to say at first that the role fitted like a glove. I think Avinoam and I have a similar personality. We have the same past. I hope that I will be mature like Avinoam in the end of the process, because he became real strong and independent, and I love him. I love this part, and I feel really excited to talk about it in front of both of the creators because I didn't get the opportunity to tell them both. Like, it really is amazing, and I feel blessed. So at first it was really hard because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know a lot about Yom Kippur. You need to understand it. Like, Yom Kippur is an unspoken war. I just finished high school. You know how many pages there was, like, learning about Yom Kippur in my history class? 2 pages. That's it. And it's wow. The intelligence unit was wrong. The end. And I was like, what? This is the whole story? And then I after like my audition, I was really nervous because I didn't know a lot about Yom Kippur, and I watched a lot of movies before that, and I came really, I was really excited and really nervous. And in my first audition, when I tried, to act in front of with the lines, I was ready. And then I told the director, okay, let's begin. And then I read my lines, and I act, and in the process, I started to feel like that I was shaking and I was nervous, and I said, oh my God, I think I'm having a panic attack, but I can continue if you want me to. And they told me, no, it's okay. Wait for a second. They told me after that this is the moment they discovered that they found their Avinoam. So the role fitted like a glove. We have the same personality. I spent all my life with animals, and my best friend has a pet store. So when they told me you need to be with a hedgehog, I said, "Oh my God, I love hedgehogs. I know how to cuddle with them." They said, "What?"
I
Yeah,
didn't even know what a hedgehog was. I don't think.
he's an albino. Snowball is an albino hedgehog, and it's really unique. And it's the only hedgehog that you can adopt. It's really cool. So it was really exciting. The most challenging thing for me, is to put myself in a war zone, but Avinoam wasn't the warrior, and I was the warrior in my duty. So it was really easy for me to feel confused and to feel scared and to feel, every emotion. And I feel that it turns out really great.
It did really great. So going back to your audition, you think you nailed it on the first one? Or you had a
No, I
callback?
thought no. Okay, so in the audition, I thought like I said to my mother, I said, okay, it's okay. I'm not gonna get any role. Everything is fine. I'm gonna stay with teen shows, teen series. It's okay. I'm not mature enough for the adult series. And then the cast director called my mother and said, we loved Shahar. And then she said, what, really? And she said, yeah. Is it okay
Wait a minute.
if we're
This is standard in Israel? She called your mother?
No, it's not
Oh, you got
standard
the part?
at all. No, it's not standard at all. Like, it doesn't supposed to happen, but she was really nervous. It was okay.
Okay.
Hila Yuval, the cast director, is really an amazing person, and she's an amazing mother. And she saw like a child in me, and she asked my mother if I'm okay. And after like few weeks, they told me, okay, can you please come? We have Aviv Alush. We want you, to do the matching with him, the audition, and it was magical. We were like, it was just an amazing click, and we sang in the audition together, and we stayed in touch before we even got in. And then they told us that we're all together in this journey, and I felt so blessed because he was a brother to me, and all the cast members in the production really wrapped me up with love and support, and made me feel like I was growing up in the middle of the process. Yeah, it was really cool.
Well, I hope we have some Hollywood casting directors watching this. I would be beside myself to see someone from Hollywood call someone's mother and talk to them about the great role they did. This would be
so
impressive.
much.
We'll have to inculcate it somehow. Okay, so, man, there was a powerful scene, I believe it was episode 4, where
I
we
know.
have this bellicose soldiers murdering each other. And then the next beat, Avinoam, and I think it was a Syrian soldier, was experiencing this intimate moment, which was epitomizing the human condition. Because you're beyond playing a soldier, you are playing a human with layered emotions. So talk about that scene and the depth or maybe balance you feel brought to a story that's really depicting the devastation of war.
I have to say that when I read this scene at home, I cried so hard. It was really exciting for me to see that there is going to be a scene that you can see that every person, we all want the same things. We all want our families to be safe. We all want peace. Doesn't matter where we come from, what side we're on. And then I learned, before that scene, I learned Arabic with an amazing teacher. And she's Arabic, like she's Arabian as well. So I learned, and she told me about their culture and about a lot of things before I got to play this scene. I was really connected to the other soldier. And then when I met Lior was the actor that played this role. We felt the connection. Everything felt so authentic and so real. And I remember I'm getting emotional. I remember that when we shot it, I felt like we hugged before and after the scene. And before we hugged, the scene was really casual and fun. And after we hugged in the scene, you could feel the tension that like, it doesn't matter where you come from. Like we're all humans and it doesn't matter. And we cried after the scene. It wasn't being like shot. And it was really so emotional and great. And I feel like the point was taken. And there was a lot of buzz after it online and social media. I get messages every day, by the way.
Really?
I got a message yesterday from someone from Egypt that told me that they love the show. They love the show. And they told me, your Arabic is really great. You know, we don't use this kind of Arabic in our country, but I know the Syrian, they use it. It's a really great thing. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, this is part of
really
the brilliance of the project, is telling from a macro level the story about war, and then having the ability to focus on the micro level, human beings, emotions that are universal, and that's why you're getting calls from all over the world. And Amit, you said Avinoam's character is based on your father?
Oh, it's not based. Oh, I'll just say about something about the scene, because this specific scene of Avinoam talking with the Syrian soldier, it started a huge debate after, when the episode ended. So, you know, it's a drama series, it's scripted, so part of it is fiction. Here, in this case, we were inspired by something that really happened. I mean, we had an inspiration of true events, and we based this scene on it. And later on, like the audience were debating if it's real, if it felt real, if something like that could have happened. And many said no. I mean, there's no way an Israeli soldier would be able to interact with a Syrian soldier in such a case. And we knew that it happened. But the strangest thing that, like hours later, so many people started sharing their own experience of similar things, how they interacted with Egyptian and Syrian soldiers in various situations. And it's just like Avinoam said, we wanted to show the surreal side of.
You did a great job. Hey, Lior, welcome.
Hey,
thanks for jumping in.
Sorry, I'm late. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of shooting.
We're happy to have you.
I'm here. Yeah.
We're just getting into some of the behind the scenes and the acting. So let's jump right in and talk to you a little bit about. So it was Yaron, I understand, maybe directed a majority of the episodes, and Kate did a few. Was that how it was set up? Lior, so can you talk a little bit about your experience working with the director? Was it a very collaborative process, or was he more of a minimalist? And also, in the same breath, do you prefer significant direction, or rather bring the character to life the way you're seeing it on the page?
Well, first of all, with Yaron, it was an interesting experience, because we talked a lot. We had a lot of research before shooting, and usually I do the research by myself. But Yaron was here with me because we combined. My character is a combination of three real realistic characters. Journalist, the father who actually went to search his son in the front line, and so we were looking to how to combine those three characters into one. So we worked together on this this role. Usually I work, in Israel, it's different from other movie industries or TV industries. The directors are very involved in acting, because my experience in doing some international movies, or you're all by yourself usually,
Right.
Yeah, the directors just tell you, do whatever you think, it's okay. But in Israel, it's more the directors are very involved with the in the process and while we are shooting.
No, so does that mean
better.
does that mean you also rehearse a lot, or do you guys like to keep it fresh and try to capture it on camera?
No, usually we rehearse a lot. We have a lot of rehearsals usually, and here we had also because of the research and the process, and we need to know, because it's, I mean, real events. So we were trying to, you know, to be
Right.
as exact as we can, you know.
And normally, is rehearsal something, because actors seem to go left or right. They either want to rehearse it and nail it and just bring it, or sometimes they don't because they think they lose the freshness of that scene and they're not in the present. Where do you normally like to go?
No, when we say rehearsing, I mean, we're not rehearsing, like, we're not staging it. We just, we're talking about the thing, we're doing the dialogues, we're reading it, we're trying to understand, we're fixing the script. I mean, not always, you know, we're working with the writers, but here Yaron was one of the writers. So we were actually writing it while we were rehearsing. So, and of course, when I mean, it's one thing, you know, to do the dialogue in a closed room, in a rehearsal room, and then
Sure.
go to the field with
It's a
all
whole
the
different
noise,
situation.
and the tanks, and yeah, the smoke and everything. So everything changed.
Were you afforded a lot of opportunity for takes, or was it were 3 takes on each shot and you had to move on? Or did you
No, we
get
had
a significant amount?
we had a lot of takes.
We had a lot of takes, yeah.
Yeah?
A lot of,
that's great.
yeah.
So Israelis essentially go into the army at 17, right? Every Israeli for the most part.
18.
Can you both
18.
at 18? Can
Yeah.
you both speak about your service, Shahar and Lior? What did you guys do when you were in the army?
I was in the army when I filmed Valley of Tears. I have to say that. In the middle of the army, I'm a singer. I was a singer like in the army. I'm in the intelligence unit. It's called like Lakat Tzva'it. It's an ensemble where you perform to all the bases all around the country, and you support and uplift the soldier spirits. So I was doing this at like in the evenings and in the morning, and then in the afternoon I was in the set of Valley of Tears.
Wow.
So yeah, it was really amazing that I got the opportunity to be like to do both of them, and I even got the opportunity to talk to a lot of soldiers like from abroad, and people that we flew to Miami and Los Angeles, and you know we performed to all the Jewish communities there, and they told me about Yom Kippur before I was casted, so I knew a lot of things about Yom Kippur only from them. So I think I need to say them like a really big thank you, because now I know a lot of things. You know, when I got casted, I knew stuff.
Fantastic. And Lior, what was your experience in the army?
Well, I was a parachute, like a combat soldier. I was serving in Lebanon, in south of Lebanon, and in the occupied territories. Well, it was, you know, yeah, I didn't experience war, but I experienced, you know, I don't know how you say, like small battles. There's a word for it in English, I'm sure, but so yeah, I was, yeah, I didn't went to, although I wanted to go to what Shahar was doing in the army.
To the intelligence.
Yeah, but I was, my profile was too high for, for you know, being
Well, that's
close
not a bad thing.
It's a good thing. I'm asthmatic, so.
And so,
Yeah.
how much were you able to pull from your experience in the army and bring that into the characters in this? And how much did you have to say, okay, well, I still need to do some research. Maybe there were friends and family that I can get their experience and then help adapt and make your character complete.
The thing in Valley of Tears, I was doing my research because I was a civilian in the
right
in the series, and the research I've made was more about what happened in between. We saw a lot of like homemade footages, like soldiers were shooting with 8mm camera. You know, just for, you know, for home, they're like hobby or whatever. And so we saw a lot of footage, like, you know, and I concentrated on that because this is what I wanted to see. The not the newsreel or the reporters or whatever. No, I didn't want to see any like propaganda, because there was a lot of propaganda then. The media, cooperate with the government back then. So back home, they didn't know what's going on in the front line. But soldiers were shooting with their 8mm camera, and this is what I prefer to do. And because of my character is a journalist, so at the beginning we were trying to take 8mm camera and shoot it, and then to insert real footage into the series.
So you had 50-year-old real behind-the-scenes footage from the soldiers.
Yeah.
Sure,
Which
that was helpful.
because there's no, with 8mm, you don't have any sound, so just images, and you could see actually, because there's no sound, you can see more details. You're more concentrated on the looks of the soldiers, and and we saw things that usually you don't see in the in the mainstream media, which are not allowed in the Israeli TV. Those kind of stuff. And we were trying to, when we find there's a scene that we find this command car, with dead soldiers, and we actually took almost, not exactly the same, but almost, we took from the footages we saw, and trying to to mise-en-scène it.
Well, it's an amazing access that you don't normally get. I'm sure it was helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Amit and Ron, we know the most valuable currency in filmmaking is time. Getting your shots in the day, right? Man, this is a massive undertaking. Shooting on tough terrain, ensemble cast, mostly exteriors in an uncontrolled environment, tanks, night shoots. How challenging was this production and keeping your schedule? Did I hear you guys only slept 10 hours a week? Did I hear that properly? Or no, that can't be.
So you can imagine the cast, together with Yaron, had to move to the Golan Heights, which means you're filming in the actual locations of the war. And since, as I mentioned, the Israeli audience is so neurotic and gets insulted so easily, part of that is the fact that people who were fighting in the war, not only those that we invited, and Yaron was generous, and also his exploration was the deep desire to dive into the research. It was incredible, but at the same time, there were so many ex-soldiers that were super nervous about the way we portray them and how accurate we will get, and they were constantly trying to get a hold of us and stay in touch and try to. So it's more of an emotional. I think it's more of an emotional stress for everyone who was on set there. But yeah, they spent time, and imagine we had to put this filming on hold for 3 weeks because of the tragedies in Syria, where missiles and rockets were being shot. This is part of the fact that you're filming in a region that is still constantly in wars. I think, and it's and the sensitivity. The crazy thing is that when you're filming so intensively, and you still have to be so careful about, one of the challenges is the fact that when you're filming a war series, you're always an anti-war story, but at the same time you might be glorifying the war. And a lot of that is things that we had to be very careful with. So we chose themes and ideas, like Shahar's story tries to, his relevancy to our world is the fact that portraying the whistleblower or the Cassandra type of a character who is fighting for his truth and trying to tell his commander, you are wrong. And this can be relevant today for climate change or for the fact that people worldwide are losing faith in democracy or so many other issues that we're not seeing the warning signs. We are blind enough not to recognize that we are heading into disaster, for example. So we felt, okay, this story might be, and Lior is portraying something that is much bigger than the war story. It's a story of social justice. It's a story besides his emotional journey, which means he's the guy when, you know, the 60s of the US arrived in Israel sometime early 70s. And this guy who was fighting four and a half wars in his past is now a pacifist. He's radical left. He's fighting for social justice and against racism, and suddenly he finds himself drawn back into the war. So it was all about this. And when you're trying to, and you know, it's I don't want to do any comparison to that, but well, like. Jews in the US know how much we never talked about in our homes about the Holocaust. We were not allowed to mention the Holocaust. And then the Eichmann trial came, and suddenly people were hearing their parents sharing their stories. So what was mutual to all of us is that we finally, after this, like opening the wounds of the Yom Kippur War, when we were working, when the cast was working, when we were filming, and then when we were already on air, we finally, for the first time, saw our fathers and mothers, our families, not only sharing the first time. And that didn't only happen when the show was out there and broke all rating records in the public broadcaster. And you know, if you look at the Wikipedia statistics, all the months of the show, when the show was airing, we were always on the top of the five most five. I think Wikipedia has a statistic of the 5 profiles or pages that are most researched. But we were also it swept the country because of that. What you're talking about, the sensitive, like the fact that immediately we had 50,000 followers on like sharing their own personal stories on our website page, sharing as a community, sharing their personal stories. So this, for the cast, it started in the process of rehearsals and shooting.
Yeah, I think
so I will just add.
Go ahead, Amit. Sure.
On the production side, it was crazy. I mean, it was crazy because I think we shot like 8 pages of script every day, sometimes 10, sometimes a little bit more. And on our other projects, on European projects, I mean, when we tell people that these are the scripts, they can't believe it, because if you ask a European, let's say, European filmmakers to do 4 pages a day, for them it feels crazy. We spoke with a French director, and he was shocked because sometimes he all he does is 1 page every day. I think,
well, they're a little bit different.
Exactly, but I think
a lot of coffee breaks.
Exactly, but I think here at the end, we were able to achieve it because everyone felt it was a war, the production, and everyone felt recruited. And
but were you guys actually shooting inside tanks and early on in the tunnels? Are those all authentic locations, or you had no sound stages?
No. Authentic locations in the Golan Heights, and like Ron said, on the other side of the border, there was a civil war, and from time to time, Israel, bombed in Syria, and you don't know, and you shoot a war series, and you don't know if tomorrow a real war will start. It was really challenging.
That's not fun. How do you get a camera inside a tank and shoot dialogues and scenes?
Lior had to practically drive a tank. You want to tell them?
Well, we actually went to the museum of the
tank driving,
of tanks, and there's the tank there was cut into 2 actually, so you could see the inside, and we were shooting from the outside in. So the camera is not actually in the tank. It's movies, we're lying.
but we had I think 3 tanks that were actually in the field, 2 Israelis
Yeah.
and one Syrian, and but then they were multiplied. All the big scenes that you see, all of them were VFX work. So this is the first time, the first
how much
Israeli
CGI?
production.
So
How much
that's the
CGI did you
interesting
have?
thing, by the way. So it's
Yeah.
you know, there are so many Israeli VFX CGI artists who are working worldwide, and they never had the chance to create an Israeli show because that we have just CGI. The Israeli talents, CGI artists are working for Marvel, for Pixar, and worldwide. And this time, these guys got the opportunity to multiply. After we told you a bit about the process of trying to buy tanks from Craigslist in the US, but then
Yeah.
when we already had these 3 tanks, the CGI started, and it was the first a very intense Israeli project with CGI and VFX.
It looked incredible when you saw a field of 100 tanks. I mean, it looked
Everything,
as
every pillar of
authentic as
smoke,
possible.
every
They're
pillar of
brilliant.
smoke, every flash from the rifle, everything is VFX.
Well, we have a ton of audience questions I want to get to very soon. I want to touch a little bit on the pursuit of success in the global market. This is something personally I think is very important that I'm trying to work on. And I think it's great for Israeli creators, the continued exposure. So what are, Ron and me, what are some of the variables that you seem to understand and apply to your shows that have been securing global distribution that maybe some really talented Israeli creators haven't figured out yet?
I think the first thing is never try to engineer it. Don't think about the global market. Tell a story, focus it on characters. When we started working on Valley of Tears 10 years ago, it was before we had Netflix, HBO Max, Apple,
Right.
Hulu. No one ever imagined that an Israeli speaking show is something that you can sell worldwide. So we wanted to do the best show we can for Israeli audience. I think if you try to engineer it, and if you try to think of specifically a German audience, an American audience, you'll fail. You'll get something that doesn't feel authentic. For me, the amazing thing about the global market is not the business opportunity, not the business side of it, but
Sure.
the fact that more and more people are willing to look at someone else's culture, open a window and see how things are, what's going on in Israel, what's going on in Italy, what's going on in South Korea. And this is, so the best thing I think is to find your local story which feels authentic, organic, and focus on characters and tell it.
And by the way, the more provincial you are, the more universal you are. But I mean, we write a story because it always starts with a place we want to be, characters we want to be. But it also, as writers, we always hope that art can transform the world with the truth. And so we are just working out our grief and our rage and our wounded hope and our deep desires just to awaken people. But the interesting thing is, I think that when you ask yourself what is common with the Israeli shows that are out there in 169 territories, I think they're all shows that have kind of an edgy mainstream DNA. We're trying to write edgy show. And by the way, Valley of Tears is all about chaos. We work in chaos. This is the beautiful thing about the DNA of the way we work. We always, we are messy. We don't obey the algorithm of drama sometimes, although we admire them, but we are less afraid to fail, and we work in a mess. And that creates because the Israeli audience is so neurotic, we create edgy shows, but because the Israeli market is so tiny, you only have 1.5 million Hebrew speaking households. It's and the suburbans. I mean, it's tiny. So you have to create mainstream shows, otherwise it doesn't make sense financially for the network. So you create edgy mainstream, and this is a kind of a very interesting combination that was a DNA that is, I think, intrigues people worldwide. And we are now grateful for the fact that the American market is so open to Israeli shows. Before that, we were doing a lot of shows and selling these Israeli shows worldwide. I mean, people know Lior and now Shahar, but people know Lior for many years now in China, Brazil, Africa, all over Asia, by the way, South America, all over, because our shows were successful there. And the American audience was more strict about watching shows with American cast about America, taking place in America's soil. So.
And this is where we started off. I mean, the beauty of this door opening, and getting the opportunity to see this there's an ocean of talent in Israel, and it's exciting to see it out there. Lior, I know you're on set. I really appreciate that you were able to jump in. So listen, Gal, Tomer, Efrat, Bar Paley, there's a handful now of actors that are working in America, and we want to see more. I'm curious how this show has been possibly opening up doors for you. So can you tell us a little bit where you're at, what are you shooting, and what's next for you, Lior?
Yeah, right now I'm shooting Lior Raz from Fauda. It's a Netflix show, kind of a let's say spy thriller, which was we were shooting in Tel Aviv and in New York. Yeah, we actually we've been shooting it last year, but then the COVID came into our life and we had to stop.
Yeah,
and now
pesky.
a year after it was all very strange. A year after we again.
And this is officially a Netflix show, right? He's got a deal, so this will be on Netflix.
Netflix original, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and I'm now I'm in the middle of editing my movie, which I directed.
Oh, terrific!
It's a remake, actually. It's a remake of Italian movie called The Perfect Strangers from 2016. It's about 3 couples getting into dinner, and they decide to play a game, put all the phones, the cell phones on the table, and every text message, mail, messenger, call, whatever comes in, you have to say it out loud. And you can imagine what happened in the next of the, it's let's say it's a kind of a comedy, and it's nice. So
well, congratulations. I know everyone's will be looking forward to seeing it. That's really exciting. All right, I got to get to some of these audience questions. I mean, we could talk for hours. The show is so incredible, so layered, so much depth, and so much talent involved. I see there. So when you guys opened up the show with the voiceover, and it sounded a little bit like you were insinuating Israel was maybe a little bit too comfortable from the past war. I believe you mentioned, let's see, this audience is asking, talking about the 3 no's, that there was no peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, that the star of the series, so it says Egypt wanted peace and Israel turned it down. Was that actually true, or is there something else that was fiction? Could you just elaborate on that part?
It is all true, of course, and I mean, we were trying to capture in this very short introduction both the fact that, I mean, it's a story about how the generals were partly hiding from the prime minister, from Golda Meir. We had a woman prime minister back then, hiding the warning signs from her, and the Israeli society was very arrogant. Now, you can argue whether the fact that when the Egyptians said, we want back our Sinai desert, let's talk peace, Israel didn't believe them. When Israel said, we prefer to hold the Sinai desert as a buffer zone and not talk peace, rather than have peace and give you this buffer zone, which is a kind of a wall, you can argue whether Israel had the excuse to be so fearful and fearful of destruction, or is it Israel refusing to peace talks? But all of these scenes, gets us back to what we started this conversation with.
Is that what you're saying, Ron? Are you saying that they were refusing to get into negotiations at all?
They didn't believe the Egyptians,
yes.
But that's part of our arrogancy. This is the first scene we had in '73. Like, we had lots of scenes, but the major scene was the fact that we were back in euphoria, but at the same time we were fearful. So it's all together. But yeah, we refused to peace negotiations, of course.
That's very interesting, and we've had a few questions.
Diane actually said it's better to have Sinai without peace than peace without Sinai, or something. I think saying it right, but
Right.
yeah, this was I mean, it was a very military time here. It was like
Yeah.
almost like
Okay, we have another audience question. What impact do you think the popularity of Israeli shows like yourself and Valley of Tears, like artists like Gal Gadot, what are they having on the Israeli image around the world, in your opinion? Amit, you want to take this one?
Yeah, well, I don't know. All I can say, this is to give you my narrow perspective, that, I mean, it's not something that that concerns me. I mean, we're telling a story. We try to focus our stories on characters and emotional drama, on psychological journeys. It's not about Israel. It's not about and sometimes it's not even about politics. I mean, when I write, or when I'm involved in a story, I try to look at the emotional and visceral side of it. If it changes, hopefully it changes someone's opinion for the best and not for the worst, but regardless to the story. And I'm not even trying to use the word propaganda, because it's not only about Valley of Tears, it's something general. Ron mentioned our mutual history. We were intelligence officers, then journalists, then writers and creators. There's something similar, yet something different in all three of them. When you're an intelligence officer, you try to find a story. There's a story that someone's tried to hide it from you, and you try to find it. When you're a journalist, you tell a story. You try to deal with the truth. And when you're a writer, you create something. You create a world. You create an environment. You create a world you want to live in, like Ron mentioned. So there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of different things. And at the end, it's about this. It's about telling the most interesting story we can tell.
Well, so speaking of that,
just to say, it's important to say, though, one thing we're really proud of when it comes to the Israeli film and TV industry is the fact that we are free to fight for our opinions, for exploring. We're not doing propaganda.
Imagine what that's like.
And I mean, we have the freedom. So it's not I mean, so basically, when people ask, when people are so sensitive, and are you contributing to, are you doing good for the Israeli image or not? We are telling them, you know what, the best image for Israel is the fact that writers are and cast members and everyone, all creators, have the freedom to explore what they think.
Absolutely. And so I'm seeing a bunch of questions here. I don't blame them. Is there going to be a season 2? And what can you tell us about that?
We don't know yet. It's too early, but we will know soon, hopefully.
Are you like, I imagine you have some notes somewhere and some ideas?
Of course, I mean, we had long talks with Lior about that. We're all of us. We're not sure. It has to do with HBO Max as well. It has to do with our partners worldwide and the 60 countries that are enjoying the show, but we don't know yet.
Was Moshe United Kingdom, they're involved with distribution as well?
So our West End, as I mentioned, West End Films are running the show both as producers and distributors, and they've done an incredible job bringing this show to so many places we've never. I mean, waking up in the morning, seeing the most important and largely circulated newspaper in Norway saying that this is one of the most brilliant war films shows in all times, we were really surprised. We never thought of. I mean, we say, well, maybe in the U.S. people know a bit about Israel, but Norway is not something we were exposed. China, so
send that article to HBO so we can get a season 2.
Hopefully,
waiting on it. Okay, another question. How did you come up with the idea for the last scene of the series where Menny's in the Shiva and he looks up and he sees his son?
Lior, you want to answer that?
You want to talk about it, Lior?
Well, the thing is, after the Kippur War, many people, not just soldiers, but there was something in the Israeli society that changed. And it was changed also politically, social, everything. And many of the, let's say, from actors, writers, politicians, went into religion. They actually, they made tshuva, we say here in Hebrew. I don't know, it's something really, it happened back then. And everybody was shocked about it because usually you'd see like, entertainment guy, the most famous entertainment guy in Israel, and then one day it become religious, and so we thought it. That's the process of Menny. That's probably this is what happened to him. As in,
it felt organic to me. I think so. I think it worked nicely. We're gonna have to wrap it up soon. We don't want to keep you guys here all day.
We
Go
had
ahead,
some
Lior.
debates in Israel. It wasn't that. It didn't went easy.
I have one last question that I didn't understand. How come the Air Force wasn't helping us out? Why were they trapped? Why didn't the Air Force just come in and bomb those tanks? Like, what was withholding help for those units that they were stranded?
Two reasons. One of them is the size. I mean, Israel was attacked on both front lines. So most of at first the Air Force was occupied with the Egyptian front line. And the other thing is this was a surprise. The Syrians had a lot of anti-air missiles deployed. And when the Air Force tried to help, and we have something like this in the scene, and many of the jet fighters were hit by it. And then in 1982, and during the Lebanon War,
but they didn't prepare. I mean, they were surprised. They didn't expect it, and it was a chaos. I know. I talked with some pilots who were back then. It was chaos. Nobody knew, and when they were bombing, most of the bombing were on our soldiers. Because there was no intelligence maps, nothing. I mean, the great Israeli Air Force actually collapsed in 73.
Yeah, I couldn't understand it. And there's a movie on Netflix right now called The Angel. I don't know the accuracy of it, right? So it's almost like a prequel talking about with the spies and how they were coming. So
true story.
That was insinuating.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Yeah.
Is it pretty accurate? But they're insinuating that, okay, even though he was crying wolf a little bit, that he was giving you the intelligence that an attack was coming. But I guess they just weren't sure if it was true.
It was one of the biggest mysteries in the Israeli intelligence community, his intentions.
Oh, really?
But Ashraf Marwan. But at the same time, it's important to say that he was like a small piece of the puzzle. I can tell you that the intelligence units in the front line, the unit that Avinoam's character is in it, where Ron and I served, they were 100% sure that the war is coming because they read all the signals.
Yeah, all those warnings were ignored.
I'm going to get to one or two more. Sorry, go ahead, Shahar.
No, I said that all the warnings were ignored from the intelligence unit. They all tried to warn everybody. We all felt really, they all felt unstoppable. Like you just won 3 wars. They thought they were unstoppable, and suddenly the war broke and things got out of hand. And that's how the story ended.
What's next for you, Shahar?
Oh, for me? Hi.
Yes, sir.
So
singing, acting, what are you doing?
I'm releasing my first single soon. I'm really excited about it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm starting to play in 2 series for teens. One is for Nickelodeon. One is for the same channel that we did Kan 11. It's a channel here that was aired, it was aired in. And I'm a gamer, so I compete every day. Like today, I have a competition when I compete. So I'm really excited.
Fortnite, like that type of thing.
Fortnite. I play Fortnite, but I'm not like a professional gamer at Fortnite. But like other games like League of Legends and stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. And did Nickelodeon call your mom when you got the part?
They did. Actually, they did.
I'm coming this summer. I hope I'm invited to meet your mom as well.
You
maybe a nice Shabbos dinner.
She's an amazing person. We'll have a kiddush.
Maybe she convince me to give you a part. Okay.
Yeah.
I would love it.
So, yeah.
All right. So we're gonna wrap up, but I want to hear listen, it's been a really long year. Thank God for your series. I know everyone I know has been watching it. We've all been binging. What else are we doing locked up in our homes? I want to just hear 1 or 2 things from all of you guys. What you've been binging, anything to recommend. Let's start with you, Lior.
Sorry, again, I didn't hear that the last.
Is there anything that you binge that you want to recommend for us as we're still locked up a little bit? Any shows that you loved, you watched over the last year, or films?
I have. I mean, my list is very. I didn't get into.
Well, give us two.
Yeah, I was working in the lockdown when everybody was in lockdown, because I'm participating in a satire show like Saturday Night Live, the Israeli Saturday Night Live. So we were we had three elections here in 2 years, and now we have another one.
Yeah, so, very exciting.
We were so busy. We were so busy. So yeah, my list is very. All
right, Amit, what about you?
The recent show that I watched and really enjoyed was The Great on Hulu, which it's fun. It's a lot of escapism and fun, and yet it's real and visceral, and talks about human nature. On Hulu, really good, and an amazing production. And I really enjoyed My Brilliant Friend on HBO, an Italian show, and again, it's another demonstration of the looking at someone else's culture, opening a window and looking at something that is different. So this one I really recommend. It feels like reading a good book, which is it's based on
especially
books.
Italian shows, because who doesn't want to be in Italy? And you watch these shows in Italy, you're like, oh my gosh, please transform me. Ron, give me a couple of recommendations.
So I think Hulu's Normal People is incredible, and everyone must go back to anyone who haven't seen Years and Years. With Uma Thurman, which is a British show, but it's incredibly, it's well done, but it's incredibly important and relevant. And also, and This Is America, and of course, like everyone else, I watched The Crown. I loved it. So, but This Is America is beautiful. Lots of great shows.
Thanks, Shahar.
I watch a lot of anime, as you can see behind me. So this is like my type. But the last episode, like the last series that I watched, is No Man's Land, because my mom told me, Shahar, you need to see this new show. Amit and Ron made it. And I said, oh my God. So we binged it together. Again, I'm talking about my mother. I'm a mama's boy. But we watched it again. It was really touching. And yeah, so you should watch it too.
It's on Hulu.
Yeah, I heard it.
Thank you, Shahar.
And Scott, what are you been watching?
Gosh, I'll tell you, I like to share what I think people don't know about. I think it's maybe one of the top 5 shows I've ever seen. It's also an Italian show called Gomorrah. If you like The Wire, it's very gritty. It takes place in Naples, and it's unbelievable. Also on HBO MAX. I'm waiting for the 4th season. There's a French show, which is really quirky. I don't know what they keep changing the title. I think it's called Call My Agent or 10%. It's like a small talent agency in France.
Yeah, it's the 3rd season.
It's funny because they're all over the place. Like one time it's a comedy in one episode, and then it's like very dramatic, and there's just like zero, like it's hilarious. So that's it. Ari, what about you?
Well, everything Amit mentioned, The Great was one of, I think, the best shows of this last year. Queen's Gambit was amazing. If you haven't seen that. Euphoria, Ron, one of the best shows of the last few years, and can't wait for the next season. So kol hakavod on creating something so great as that. But before we go,
is there another Israeli season or American?
I watched the American version, which Ron helped.
The Israeli version's terrific too.
I'd have to watch it. By the way, before we go, there's one really critical question we didn't get to, which everybody wants to know from Shahar, is where is Pine Nut now?
Where is
Pine Nut?
Snowball. Okay. My hedgehog. We're still in touch. We talk like weekly. I'm serious. I know the person that is the owner of Snowball. He lives in a farm in the north, and I visited him a few weeks ago, and I'm supposed to visit him next week, and I'm really excited about it. He's alright, and he's evolving, and he's getting mature and getting famous.
Okay, so we hope to see him in another series soon. Anyhow, thank you guys. It's an amazing discussion. I want to thank all of you. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you so much for having us.
Moderating.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
By the way, if you haven't seen the series, HBO Plus is streaming now. I recommend not dubbing version, but watching it in the Hebrew version, and you can see the subtitles. As far as CCFP, we have a lot of events coming up, so please stay in touch. Check us out on social media. Once again, we are nonprofit, so please think of donating, ccfpeace.com, ccfpeace.com. Everybody stay connected, stay safe. Thank you, especially Lior. I know you were busy today. Bye, guys.
Thanks for everything.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.